welcome to the stage writer and director Babak Anvari. Babak. And the stars of the film, Kelly MacDonald. And Hugh Bonneville. Hello. Kelly, fresh from the One Show, by the way. Good job. It's exhausting. Babak, last thing first, why everybody wants to rule the world by Tears for Fears over the end credits? What's that all about?
Oh, just have popcorn all over me.
Oh,
sorry.
Good stuff.
Why that track? First of all, because I love it. And also, for ages when I was listening to that track, everyone thinks it's like just a pop song, you know, and people sing along to it. But the lyrics of the song explore something much darker, and it's about, you know, loosely, it's about like desire for power and the misery that brings to people. And I just found it very interesting that it has that sort of like, you know, like underlying theme. And when I was listening to it, as I was working on the script, I was like, you know, if I can do the same with the movie, if I can make a film that is a thriller and it's entertaining and engaging, but has some like underlying theme like this track, that would be amazing. And I was like, hey, I should use it in a movie. So yeah, that's basically how it's. And we're so lucky that we got it. Yeah, blessed.
Yeah, it works. It works brilliantly. Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. What was the initial spark for this frankly shocking, perverse psycho thriller?
I was in my early 20s at university, at film school, first year at uni, and me and my mates were kind of loosely similar to Jay and Toby, and the idea came to me then, but it was much simpler and far more earnest. So I wrote it down as like just an idea, and I thought it's a contained thriller. I can do it as a first feature, but I didn't end up doing it as a first feature. And after my first feature, when people were asking what you want to do, I went and looked back and I found this one page, and I thought, this is very relevant and timely. I can start exploring that, and so yeah, that's how it came about. Yeah.
But the key influence, I think, was Hitchcock and Psycho in particular. Is that right?
Definitely, yeah. Hitchcock, Psycho, and Rear Window, I would say. But yeah, especially Psycho. I think I remember when I pitched it originally, I was like, I want to do a double Psycho. I want to set up a character, then kill him, then set up another character, the mother, and then kill her. And then finally, the friend that everyone thinks is just a supporting sort of role ends up being the ultimate hero.
Right, because Janet Leigh famously dies like 40 minutes in, I think.
Yeah, 40, and actually Toby ends up dying 40 minutes in our film, roughly.
Wow.
So that wasn't planned. It just happened.
Yeah. So Kelly, when you read the script and your character is the next one to die in a horrible way, another further way into the film, but not right to the end, what did you think?
I kind of enjoyed that. It's like nobody wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find it just a really compelling, the poor woman, she's driven almost to madness trying to find her son, finds out he's dead, and then she's next.
Yeah, it's great, absolutely great. It's interesting that, I love the fact that we see you counselling a young person earlier in one of your early scenes, but your relationship with your son is difficult, really difficult.
Yeah. I like that about Lizzie as well. Like she's not just the mom. Like she's got a job as well, and just the irony of the fact that she's really good at what she does at work, but she can't bring it home. And like you were saying before, it's kind of heartbreaking, really, that the last time she sees her son is just so awful,
Absolutely.
And unfinished.
George can't be here, but is it right? George was cast first. Was he the first?
Yeah, he was the first one who came on board. And I sent him the script, and I was so nervous because I was like, he's gonna call me and say, I died, page 40.
And then I was like, George Mackay playing my son? You kidding?
Right. Yeah, because he's like, 30 or something? Yeah.
to Google it.
Fair enough. Yeah. He's very convincing as a younger man.
Well, he was 29 when he
Okay.
shot.
You hasten to point out. Fair enough. And Hugh, we are a long way from Downton and Paddington. I mean,
Well, you should see Paddington on his off days.
what a thought. Did you? I have visions of you. I don't. This is my own fantasy. Reading the script and thinking, this is what a brilliant idea to have you playing this twisted man.
Well, it was. I mean, and when I read it, like all good scripts, when it surprises you at every third page and turns right and then left and then right again, and you think you've got the handle on the if not the genre, then at least the sort of form of what's happening, and then it just pulls the rug each time. And your tribute, as it were, to Hitchcock and those classic films, but with your own voice. I think that's what really drew me on board.
And just the whole idea of playing this. I mean, he's a really nasty piece of work. I feel you're almost looking like you don't agree. You're one of those actors who actually I see his good side.
I think you have to care about your character.
Right. But was it as much fun as it looks to play this?
Oh, it was great fun, and I felt so sorry for Kelly when we were doing the scene in the. I just kept saying, get in the fucking kiln. just make life so much easier. Just get in the kiln. And poor Kelly had to, sit there while I was dragging bodies around, and unfortunately the plastic saw wasn't very plastic on the day. And poor Yazdan got a huge scar on his neck. But anyway, I kept going as a method.
Right. Yeah.
I'm in therapy.
It's quite physical, isn't it? Those three scenes, where
but
you've got them in the basement.
Yeah. Basically, Liam needs to look out. It's,
I love that idea. You're going to be the new action hero.
Absolutely.
Yeah, albeit a
it was. I mean, for all that it's sort of dark and twisted, it was a very enjoyable set, I must say.
I bet. And Babak, was Hugh? Did you have Hugh in mind? It's such a brilliant idea to cast Hugh in that role. I feel like everyone, as soon as they heard the idea, he was going to play this really, really nasty, sick, twisted person. Everyone's like, "Oh, amazing."
So what was the question?
It's whether he was your first choice, and almost did you write it for him, or did you write the character thinking of him?
First choice, and I was like, I want Hugh Bonneville to play a sick, twisted man, and I was so blessed. Again, that was another nerve-wracking thing because I think my first conversation with Hugh, we had a long Zoom chat, and I couldn't tell because you asked me a lot of questions. Like, who's this character? What do you think? And I couldn't tell if he's excited or not. And then afterwards, when Hugh's agent let us know that he's excited, I was like over the moon because that was exactly what I wanted. Like someone like that, the audience that really don't expect to see playing that role. And then I remember he kindly sent me a message right after. He was like, "I'm looking forward to create this monster with you." Yeah, and I think it's forever going to be my favorite monster.
Are you a fan of cinematic monsters like this character? Do you aficionado? Do you enjoy?
No, I'm rubbish at. If I was watching this for the first time, I'd be there with the pillows and the fingers and all that. I'm rubbish at jump scares and thrillers and so on. But I think we are all intrigued by the normality of evil, the normality of the person next door who turns out to have a really strange life. I did actually, once we were shooting, I did watch the fascinating documentary about Ted Bundy, and this very, very eloquent, educated, personable, reasonable person, committing absolute atrocities, I'm glad I don't live in Dulwich, that's all I'm saying.
So your huge house was in Dulwich?
My huge house was notionally in Dulwich, it wasn't
with the
basement.
Yeah. Kelly, it's interesting that the film, as well as being fantastically entertaining and a kind of a proper thriller with jump scares, such also has a kind of social political underpinning to it as well. Did you get that when you were reading the script?
No, I'm a dullard. I didn't. None of that really registered. But we were joking earlier, like in Downton, I would definitely be downstairs.
Right.
In the upstairs downstairs scenario.
Yeah, because there is. Funny enough, I'm going to make the point that there is similarity to Downton in that it's looking at social strata. It's looking at the upper class and the low, the different classes. Is that too much of a stretch? You're looking at me like I'm really stretching.
No, I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't quite put it Downton terms, but no. I mean, the obvious point is that those with the power hold the strings, and the voice of frustration from those who don't have a voice, as it were, and I think that's beautifully etched. And also, I think you see a London that is terribly vivid and not full of red London buses, but you recognise that urban environment, the urban pressure, and the distinctions between the haves and the have-nots. And I think that's a very simple thread that runs through it, but it's very powerful.
Yeah, because the London we see in it feels quite unusual. I feel like on top of the psycho influence, there's a bit of frenzy, which is I love that Hitchcock kind of grimy look at London. I feel is in there a bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I absolutely love London. I think it's the best city in the world. I also thank you. Well, I also the moment we said I wanted to make a new noir thriller in London, but we were very adamant that we don't want to make a postcard version of London. We wanted it to feel like we're on the ground looking at London like any Londoner, like any normal Londoner. So that was really key for me. So yeah, that's why we avoided Big Ben.
Yes. It's not a tourist view of London at all.
Yeah.
No. And Kelly, Babak is obviously such
Can
a...
I just say, I
Yeah.
just did a jigsaw, a 3D puzzle of Big Ben 2 days ago, and it was very...
Did you? Are you a jigsaw enthusiast? What? As a character point, you might want to... Yeah, that's interesting. What I was going to ask you was, Babak is such a lovely, charming, sweet guy, clearly. I mean, I did a Q&A with him last night, so I should reveal. What kind of director is he? What's he like as a director directing you?
I mean, it was sort of an unusual spot for me to be in, because in the film, a lot of the time I spent on my own in a car.
Yeah.
So I feel like we had more of a long distance relationship.
You'll be running to a car, talk to you, and then come back.
Yeah. No, but it was a really, like Hugh said, it was a really lovely place to be on that set, and no offense, but it's that thing where you're a complete film nerd, and it's sort of really enjoyable to be around. So yeah, it is something to be proud of for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hugh, what did you think? How was Babak with you? Because it's interesting actually, because you are separate a lot. That we see a lot of you kind of being creepy in your big house, but it's quite an interesting, like, solitary role in some ways.
I always think that characters reveal a lot about themselves when they're on their own. So it's good. We see all the characters on their own, and that's I think very, very powerful emotionally. But as a director, I think Babak's main struggle was with his face mask.
So this was filmed during COVID.
We were filming during COVID, and he spent most of his time just trying to prop it up on his nose because it kept sort of dropping down like a sort of chin guard, steaming the glasses on. But extremely collaborative, I would say. Even though he crafted this, I think, beautifully structured script, but you were very open to ideas and thoughts. And his relationship with Kit, his DOP, is extremely close and potent, and so the camera work was really absolutely key, and anything that we could do to help that have its power was really what we were after as actors, I think.
And Babak, from your point of view, I'm going to bring up the social strata thing again, but was it important for you to have a kind of some underlying interesting themes and ideas about privilege? I mean, I can't think of a more entitled figure than Hugh's character in a way, and there's a little bit of social satire in there as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that we were having fun, but at the same time we wanted to make a thriller that's engaging. But yeah, sure, there was this idea that, like, privilege and people with certain level of power, they can get away with murder, literally. And to be fair, if there was like the heartbeat of the film for me, the central theme was that like how institutions can fail us, and not just like big institutions like police or the government, but even like on a smaller scale, like our families or friendship groups. And if big institutions fail us, shouldn't we like sort of look after our smaller institutions that have each other's backs? I think that was like the heartbeat of the story for me, really, if that makes sense. Everything else kind of branched out of that.
Yeah. It's interesting that Hector had played squash with that policeman, with the kind of superior policeman. I think that's you feel there's a kind of creepiness to that whole thing. You're thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense. He thinks he can get away with anything.
Well, I think, funnily enough, I've just done a show all about the Brinksmack robbery of the early 80s, in which the nexus between police, underworld, and the Masons and the journalism, was as potent then, and so it's totally credible. The fact that the pillars of the establishment interact, and the graffiti writers, are the voice saying we can't have access to that world, and when we need to express something and we don't know, we have nothing to build on that. We just express it, but they don't have access to the levers of power, and so I think that nexus that you describe in the film is very potent and very real.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some fun pop culture moments that I particularly like. There's the Bake Off scene, Kelly. You're watching Bake Off, which I think just kind of says something.
It should have been. I was thinking it should have been the Great British Pottery Throwdown or whatever it's called.
But Bake Off, I know what you mean. Bake Off is iconic, isn't it?
What's that, sorry?
I know what you mean, but Bake Off is iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And why do you think why have the Bake Off moment in there, Babak?
I used to watch Bake Off with my ex, and I used to always think, this is so lovely, people making cake, yay, and forget about all the horrors, in the world. So that's, it's just that, there's this coziness to it, which I think in that scene is quite ironic because she has no clue what happened to her son. She's just watching people making cakes, being very happy. And I think that's the very last time we see Lizzie kind of at peace and happy, but it doesn't last.
Yeah, it's interesting because after that she kind of goes all detective, doesn't she?
She does. I'd be saying she sort of turns into a version of Columbo or something. Gone wrong, and like I said, the interior of the car is I can still picture it in my head. But she gets she's just not looking after herself, bless her.
No.
And smoking, which is kind of fun. And just she loses her boy, and then she starts losing her mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, while Liz is watching Bake Off, you're watching Rick and Morty. Yeah, big fan. Were you a fan? Did you understand
Well,
that?
my son tried to get me into it, and I really am sorry. I know it's dangerous, but
Don't apologise.
I couldn't really get into it. But Babak sits there. I mean, look, he's insane. This guy. He creates these really painful characters, and then just chucks in a bit of Rick and Morty. So
It's genius, you.
It's
should get
not.
into it.
I don't get it either. And what's even worse than Rick and Morty is Rick and Morty Cluedo, which I was made to play during the first lockdown, and I've never been so unhappy.
So you won't be doing a Rick and Morty puzzle?
What's that?
You won't be doing a Rick and Morty puzzle?
No. I'm very anti Rick and Morty.
It's the best show.
Yeah, I think it takes a while to get into that. Let's face it.
Maybe.
It's an acquired taste.
We agree to disagree.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the scene where you bring that poor guy, the masseur, back to the house, and you drug him, you spike his drink. That's such a and basically we reveal your kind of dark, weird motive in a way for what turned you into. That's such an interesting scene. What was that like to film? That kind of.
Well, it was interesting. I mean, you could say, well, that he's explaining his backstory, which may not be entirely true. But is that all? I mean, if you've had doesn't mean that you then go out and commit these murders. So I think it was a really fun scene to film. And poor Yaz was getting more and more nervous as the sort of creepier I got. But it was. But I don't think it's not like explaining the entire story of the character, which I love. I love the fact that could be true, might not be true. I mean, it's just part of who he is. And it was really enjoyable to film. And of course, I think it was blazing sunshine outside, wasn't it? Most of the time, it was all blacked out. You're always filming at strange times of day, and we filmed it over several days, I think, because of inside and outside and so on. But no, it was fun to do. Actually, it sounds really weird to say it's fun to do, but it was.
It was. Well, can I tell a story? Because we blocked the scene, obviously, me, you, and Yazdan, and then we had a crew show, and the crew came in to just see what we came up with together. And then Hugh and Yazdan did the whole scene, And then we said, cut, turn around. Half of the crew were like this. It was amazing. Yeah.
Grab my drink. In terms of your previous films had a kind of horror thriller element, as does this. I mean, this, kind of, I think it plays with genre, doesn't it, to some extent? Like, you don't know how far you're going to go with the horror element, but in the end you go quite far, brilliantly. How did you end up becoming the genres of scaring people and touching upon the really dark areas of the mind? How did that become the thing that you're most interested in?
It's very simple. I'm a massive wimp, so I get easily scared myself. So I always think about okay, the scenarios that could scare me, and I was like, okay, if I put in a movie, see if it scares other people, then I know that I'm not crazy. It's really scary.
That makes sense, I guess. Yeah. Kelly, are you a fan of this kind of film normally? Would you choose to watch it?
Yeah, not alone though.
Right.
I mean, it's not the kind of thing I'd happily sort of choose an evening on my own. I kind of yeah. I'm happier with thrillers than horrors.
Right.
But not delighted. I'd rather watch a comedy.
To be honest, yeah. But Hugh, there's kind of horrific horror elements to it. It goes quite far, doesn't it? When you're reading the script, you think, oh yeah, were you excited how juicily kind of nasty it gets?
I think like all good dramas or all good scripts, more is left to your imagination than shown. And I think the more that you think, well, there was that horrible bit when, you think, well, actually, you didn't actually see it. Your imagination saw it. Your imagination went there. And I think it's very economic writing. When I say, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to, chop him up. Obviously, I've got to chop him up because he's going to fit in the kiln. You're smaller, so it'll be easier. I mean, it's just really economic writing. It's brilliant. I love that. And your brain is working overtime about what's going to happen next. So I think that's a great skill to have. And I'd love to see you do a comedy though.
I think I'd be rubbish at it. Also, hats off to you because that line, actually, you came up with it on the day. That wasn't in the script. You're smaller, you fit. Yeah. That's genius.
I forgot that. Sorry.
That's brilliant.
I love the lack of empathy. It's like that Ted Bundy thing. It's just that pure. That's what it takes, clearly.
Yeah, I think looking at when I watched those, I think there are certain moments where you suddenly turn from your incredibly charming outer shell, if you like, and we see a little glint in your eye almost of how when you kind of go, particularly, for example, in the scene where you do bring the guy back to your house, there's a close-up shot. You see that little change in your eyes. Are you aware of that? Of when you're kind of suddenly turning into the real monster, or showing us the real monster?
I don't know, if it's not on the page you can't play it, and I think the subtext is always there, and it's a question of, and Babak's very good at bringing the faders up and down on how much to reveal, and there'll be several takes, I'm sure, where I was sort of going and then he'll say, maybe bring it down, use the eyes, and so I don't take too much credit for that. I'll leave it to the director.
Fair enough. It's interesting.
No. I mean, you were just brilliant too. I just want to say, yeah, you weren't. The word, it was just working with, it was just fantastic because all the subtleties in the performance, and I kept saying that, managing to create genuine fear just through performance without any sound design, and Hugh did it so brilliantly. So thank you so much.
I think that feels like quite a good place to end then on that. Before I say goodbye to you all though, I have a little announcement to make, which is that there was a silent auction for, you see all this Hector Blake stuff outside, which was fantastic. It's celebrating this sick man in a very entertaining way. There was a silent auction for Sir Hector's painting of flowers, which will be signed by the cast. There were some suitably perverse entries, including someone who was willing to give their left toe, which seems a bit much. But I can announce the winner, and let me just say, this person should go to the front desk where we all checked in at the beginning of the evening to get your prize. And the winner is a piece called "The Blissfulness of Ignorance" by Ms. Granger. I won't say your first name, just in case you want to start stalking you properly. But yeah, "The Blissful of Ignorance" by Ms. R. Granger is the winner. And then let's just thank one more time. Thank you all for coming, and thank Babak, Kelly, and Hugh for a fantastically entertaining film.